Hello and welcome to the third episode of DM's Book Club, a podcast. I know we're back, third time lucky. A podcast where we read about some Dungeons and Dragons and discuss how we might include it in our role-playing games. My name's Fiona. I am one half of the DM Book Club team, and I'd like to introduce my other co-host who's picked today's topic, Ryan Cook. Ryan, how are you?
I am also one half. How are you?
Just what, in general, emotionally speaking?
Just in most things, yeah. Just one half of many things. I'm useless by myself, but my God, in a pair, capable. Oh. I'm good. I'm very good. Yeah, it's been a chill week, actually. I've been enjoying working from home as ever, reading all about this lovely chapter of joy and love and peace and harmony and all the things in between. Hey, it's even this chapter, I swear, is more positive and lovely than the Mind Flare chapter you introduced on us last time around, I swear.
Yeah, it was just sort of like a behind the scenes thing. We're filming this actually a few days late because originally when we had this planned, I believe it was somebody's birthday. And,
I know.
And annoyingly, all of your friends were like, we should hold a surprise Zoom party. And I was like, well, I know one date where he'll be free.
But the problem is that obviously it was some sort of surprise and I didn't realize it was happening. So I was sat there like an absolute lemon with my book and my notes and everything like ready to go. And I sat down and then suddenly there was all these people on the screen. I was very confused. I was like, oh, you will want to know about the Blood War as well? Great.
What a way to start. Yeah, I did think it would be a bit selfish. I was going, right, but we've got recording to do for an hour, so you guys can just hang on in. But no, it was a very, very lovely Tuesday evening we had.
It was good fun. I really enjoyed it. It was intense.
Intense partying on Zoom. That's how we like to roll.
Exactly.
So, Ryan, what topic are we talking about today and why have you chosen it?
So, the first topic I picked, I sort of spoke about how in D&D, when I build campaigns and I put villains in, I really enjoy things that are not necessarily evil for the sake of evil. I like things that are a bit grey and neutral and muddied and just that, like real moral quandaries of, okay, there's this big bad, they're doing something, it's really horrible, people are dying, people are being kidnapped, and then you learn about it and you go, oh, that's why they're doing it. That changes things. And for me, when I first opened up so this is Mordenkainen's Tome, which I have to say, out of every book that has been released so far, this has possibly been the one that I've enjoyed the most.
Interesting.
Because it's got a real just dump of all kinds of lore and all kinds of like world building and all different pieces. It's not full of stats. It's not full of spells. It's not full of all the technicalities of it. It's purely a book about like interesting things. And the first chapter about the Blood War really stuck with me because on the face of it, it is this horrible thing that is evil in every single way you could think about. Different shades of evil, different colors of evil, all thrown in, and it is just evil. But it's not as evil as you would think when you think about it. And that's what I quite enjoy about it. That's sort of, oh, that's an interesting one. And then you think about it for too long, and then you go, no, hang on, it is really evil. That's interesting. So if you don't know about the Blood War, the thing you need to learn really quickly, and essentially 30 pages of book teaches you about this. Sorry, it is a long chapter. I appreciate
I did not.
That.
When I opened it, I was like, oh, it's fine. Just another 10, 20. Oh, God.
It teaches you, long-winded, the difference between a devil, a demon, and a fiend. Whereas fiends are the big sort of what they call the sort of gathering, the class of all of these entities. A fiend is a non-material plane, lower planes entity of evil that has multiple subclasses. And of those, devils and demons are two different subclasses. Now, often in fairy tales and myth and religion, as we see it in the world that we live in, devils and demons can kind of be like switched quite often. There's
interchangeable for sure. Yeah,
exactly. There's not necessarily a difference, but in D&D there is a huge difference, and it's not only a difference of what they are, but actually it's a difference where if you were to confuse the two, they would get very grumpy with you as well. And it all boils down to the fact that the devils and the demons are two different types of evil. Devils are lawful evil. They are planners, manipulators. They are bound in rules and order and hierarchy, and they are evil because they thought about it, and then they thought about it some more, and they've gone, yeah, you know what? We love this. This is what we want to do. Demons are chaotic evil. They are the absolute antithesis of pure, chaotic death, destruction, real true evil for the evil's sake. They haven't thought about it. There's no logic. It's just pure instinct. It's like the animalistic version. And on the face of it, these two different evils should at least ally or get on with each other, but no, they hate each other. And the Blood War is all about this endless infernal battle between the devils and the demons, and how that interacts with D&D and the material plane. And I don't know, I just think it's really interesting.
Yeah, I think, like, I am definitely one of those people when we've had it in our campaign when there's been an instance of a devil that's popped up and I've gone, is it the bad one? I can't tell. I mean, they're all bad, but it's like, is it less bad than what we get? But when I was reading at it, instantly, maybe it's just the way my mind sort of processes things. Seeing the sort of organization and the order of the devils, this reminded me so much of working in a company. You have the
You're
9
not
levels.
Far wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, that's a horrifying way of thinking about it, but it really is.
Like, I think, again, this is where I had to write it all up. So, again, behind the scenes things, I write pages and pages of notes, which is essentially copying out the book, but it just helps me sort of balance, like, trying to get all this knowledge in. And certainly when you have 10 technically different sort of devils, all slightly different, but they all have their own sort of layers and stuff. So I think, well, there's the one where it's just like, I would assume the legal department, it's Beelzebub. And it's just like all the laws are written there and all that sort of thing. And then you've got Asmodeus at the top at the bottom, in Nessus. And
yeah,
that's
at the bottom, do not go there. Which is also the top. Yeah, yes. Yeah, Asmodeus. He's, again, we're gonna have some fun with trying to pronounce all of these different words. Devils are difficult. Demons are even worse because it's just, I swear they lose all sentence structure when they come up with things like this. But yeah, it is really interesting. Devils are heavily organized, and actually that is their true strength. The thing that you learn about the Blood War quite quickly is that demons and devils hate each other. And getting understanding of why is a really interesting thing, because it comes from two different selfish points of view. Devils, they thrive on souls, effectively. So in D&D, you have this concept of you've got mortal souls and then immortal souls. And pretty much most things that live in the outer planes of D&D are typically classed as either planar or immortal. So a lot of celestials, fae, elementals, fiends, all of these things are immortal. And anything immortal can only be destroyed if it's killed on its own native plane. And that's quite a crucial thing to remember. So you've got hell, or the 7 hells of where the devils live, and then you've got the abyss, which is where the demons live. I always have to double check this. I always say 7.
Exactly.
It is 7. It's 9, isn't it?
9. It's 9, yeah.
It's 9. Doesn't matter how many times I learn that, I always get that wrong.
Well, and that's what I find one of the things interesting for me, is that there's so much to it. And in the book as well, it obviously talks about the 10 devils, because there's one level that has 2 of them, essentially.
Yeah.
And then obviously you have it all written out, and then you go, okay, demons, the abyss is the abyss, don't worry about it, like, you can't map it. And then there's all these other things, and I just feel like, for me, I'm like, whoa, it takes a lot, it's a lot to process. It's really good. But then even with the devils, they have lieutenants who are backstabbing and want to take over, or almost like a worm tongue guest type thing, and they also get a mention, and then also get their own stat blocks, and it's like, oh my God, there's so much. It can be quite overwhelming.
Interestingly, demons are, from a DM's point of view, a lot easier to deal with. And the abyss is a lot easier to deal with, because it comes across in the book as like, here are some steps with how the abyss works. You know, you enter it by this mechanism, you then have to do this mechanism, and then this happens. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't go into the detail of what's in which layer, what happens in each sort of like area of the abyss, because you just can't predict it. Yeah. And because of that, it actually takes a lot of the issue of trying to run
so
it
much
away.
Strain off. Yeah,
exactly. If you have a look at the Descent into Avernus like campaign, you will see the complexity of actually trying to do a campaign in hell, because hell is horrific and it's complicated and it's so full of rules that you have to think about it very, very long and hard. But the general gist of it is that the devils want to take over everything. They believe that they are the best, most powerful, most righteous rulers of the multiverse. And actually, because the devils are so organized and because they are so just absolutely meticulous in how they do things, how they steal souls and recruit more followers and tempt people and generally corrupt people, they would have the power to take over absolutely everything if it wasn't for the demons. Now, the demons want to do exactly the same thing, but from the abyss, they just want to consume. Mm-hmm. There are these things called demon princes or sort of greater demon lords that come through, which essentially the longer a demon spends in this horrible warping abyss, the more powerful it gets, the more twisted it gets. And eventually these lords are developed that can essentially sort of mind control, very, very similar to sort of like a mind flayer-esque sort of thing that we were talking about last week. Mm-hmm. A demon lord just sort of creates this sort of you've got to follow me effect around other demons, and they seek to leave the abyss and consume everything. And annoyingly for the devils, demons are more powerful than devils. And all the way through this chapter, that is made very evident. The abyss is much stronger and much more horrifying than the nine hells. If you took an average devil, even an average like devil leader of a particular level, a layer of the nine, an actual, Asmodeus, for instance, and you took him and put him against one of the most powerful demons, he would lose hands down. Yep. Demons are more powerful, more corrupt, tougher to kill, and generally just horrifying. But they're disorganized, they're chaotic, they can't work together. And because of that, it's like this horrible beast with about 7 million heads that thrashes out at everything it can, including itself. And because of that, the devils know that they have to keep it in check, because if they don't keep it in check and they take over everything, then the demons would effectively attack the devils and win, and they can't stop it. So they have to stop the demons from getting out. And the demons have this sort of horrible realization as well, that every time they break out, the devils will come and kill them. So they need to take the devils out as well. It's this sort of weird, hilarious balance between the two, where you've got two entities that want to take over the world, but they know they can't whilst the other one exists. And because of that, they fight. And because of that, evil is sort of effectively kept largely in check, just killing itself.
Yeah, it's described as like this great dance where one group like gains an advantage, but there's a weak point in their defenses elsewhere, and it's constantly shifting and changing. And for me, what came through was like, again, it's like, I guess what this whole book is about, really, the Tomb of Foes, is that you have this sort of this cosmic battle going on that most people on the material plane probably aren't aware of. It's just in the background, very sort of Avengers-esque. Like, I'm just thinking of like the end of that first film where the sky rips open and these aliens come and only the Avengers can stop it. Or what was the other one I was thinking of? I've forgotten now. But going back to demons, there was a great quote that I had to write down, which I thought was brilliant. It was like, being lord of part of the abyss is like being the biggest maggot on the dung heap. And I was just like, because it's true, like exactly what you said, like each demon is out for themselves. They don't care about the other demons. They just want everything. And it's a great, like if you're rolling up demon minor characters, I think it's just their flaw is the same no matter what you roll. I'll have to look it up now. But it's, demon bonds, 1 to 6. I'm a perfect product of creation, destined to one day shape the cosmos to my whims. Everything I do verifies my destiny. And that's all their bonds. You don't get to choose. And I thought that was excellent.
Yeah. It's really, really good. And demons are horrifying. I mean, the abyss is this endless, chaotic, shifting plane. It's not like Limbo. Limbo has been around in D&D for a long time and is this plane where it is so chaotic, anybody with a strong will can kind of bend the plane to their own thought. It's very sort of sci-fi-esque, where if you were big and powerful in Limbo and you stood somewhere and you said, I don't like the look of that mountain, you went, with your mind, you could move the mountain. The abyss isn't like that. It kind of gets warped by the demons themselves, and the demons get warped by it. And there's this horrifying concept that once a demon breaks through into another plane, if it's not stopped or checked, then that abyssal taint comes with it. And just like sort of dropping oil into a bucket of water. It just slowly spreads and spreads and spreads until the abyss gets a foothold in the plane of existence that it's currently sat in. A portal opens, more demons come through. That accelerates the process. Eventually, a lord comes through, which organizes it. And before you know it, the demons have taken over the plane. And as soon as that happens, it becomes this wretched, abyssal, horrible place. And then before you know that, it doesn't exist anymore. It is just the abyss, and it is yet another layer of the abyss. And that's the horrifying thing. The demons cannot really be stopped. As soon as they get a foothold somewhere, that's it. You know, once a portal is opened, people have got to watch that portal for all of eternity. You know, short of a wish spell, you can't get rid of that abyssal taint. It's just stopping it from getting worse. They are horrifyingly powerful. And the devils know that. If the demons are left unchecked, every single world out there eventually will just get taken over and taken over and taken over. And eventually all there will be are the 9 hells and the abyss. And if that happens, there's no point in ruling over it because there's nothing to rule over. It would just be the end of the world as we know it. So the devils try and stop that. And equally, the demons know that they can't achieve their perfect, as you say, their perfect bond, which is just to create a world around themselves, if the devils exist, because, again, they will stop it. And yeah, I love the imagery of the abyss, that horrifying, the fact that it isn't just a plane in itself, it is a multitude of other planes that over the years have fallen, and worlds that used to exist and no longer, and little pockets where princes and lords fight amongst each other, and eventually one will take over. And as you say, it's impossible to map it because you don't know who's in charge and for how long. It's just pure chaos.
Yeah, and there's a lot to play with that as well. The other bit I did find really interesting, I put down in my notes as well. So yeah, you seem to have these two sides, the devils and the demons fighting against each other. But there's also something called the balance, which is almost like a third party, where they also realize this sort of connection, that this sort of great dance is that if one side wins and the other side sort of loses, and then everyone loses. So the balance is usually, from what I understand, a group of adventurers, but mostly high-powered arcane users and wizards and stuff, who will change their sort of goals or to help one side and then the other, making sure that this is always in the balance. So Mordenkainen's one, I think Bigby's another one, are sort of people who are helping us. And what was interesting, I found, is that this sort of character, if you are dedicating your life to the balance, you are not a good person. You change, who you're helping depending on how the system is. And so it looks like you are just constantly changing sides, and your motives are usually hidden because you don't want to hurt people. So you've become sort of almost like an outcast, almost like an exile. And so for me, that brings up images of sort of Van Helsing, from the terrible 2004 film, that you're trying to help people, but also keep secret and keep them safe by, keeping away from people. And I just thought that was just such an interesting concept, that if a party of adventurers had met the balance who was helping them and then suddenly betrayed them at the last minute, of course you'd feel hurt, but actually it's because they have higher goals, higher aims to keep this cosmic thing in balance, which is beyond everyone of us. You are just a tiny speck in this
I would
cosmos.
Interject quickly that was Hugh Jackman's greatest role. And
I agree.
Utterly about what it was a brilliant film. But you're right, the balance is this really weird concept. All the way through this chapter, there are constant references to this could be a tipping point in the war, and all these different things. If a devil, and there is one of the devils is sort of rumored to, one of the demons is rumored to have eventually been a devil to start with, and supposedly shifted over. It is the demon of hedonism, which is Gradst. There we go.
Yes.
And there's this rumor that once it was a devil and it became a demon, and it became a very powerful demon lord. And if that were to happen again, the demons may have the power to break through the devils. And equally, if a demon were to be taken hostage or controlled with these sort of amulets these soul amulets they create in order to stay immortal, then the devils would get they would win. And the balance is this horrifying thing. You may think that the demons, this abyssal taint, is absolutely just horrible, and the demons across the multiverse need to be destroyed. But if you did that, then there would be nothing for the devils to fight. And then the devils would gather their strength, and then they would take over all of mortal life as it was. And the same, if the devils were defeated, nothing would stop the demons. And I love that balance, because it gives you all kinds of things to play with. As you say, the balance itself is, you're absolutely right, horrifying, because it may look like somebody is setting fire to an orphanage and then running away, and you think that's a terribly evil thing, but actually that fire kills some children, of which one becomes a devil, and that devil becomes a lieutenant, and eventually that lieutenant stops a particular demon incursion on the material plane. It stops the material plane from falling. So they play this sort of weird game.
Yeah. It makes me think quite a lot of like Game of Thrones, the idea of all this politics going around, and like I do not have a head for it at all. So it's just that sort of thing going, they move in mysterious ways, but sometimes you don't know if it is a genuine thing to go against the demons and devils, because it does say, I think at some point, talks about like, obviously if you want to get more power, then the balance is a good way to go about it, because you are learning and you're trying to control things. So it is also for selfish objectives as well. But we'll move on slightly. So I want to know, Ryan, who are your sort of standout, like say top 3 devils and demons, if you have any?
Well, I like the story of Zariel, I must say, and she's used quite a lot in the Descent from Avernus, but it's this idea of a angel that fell and became one of the most powerful devils and the current ruler of Asmodeus, which is the first layer of hell. And there is this constant debate as to whether or not she fell and lost all of her humanity and good and became this horrible, bloodthirsty devil killer, or whether she actually ascended and took the bullet effectively. She took the sacrifice for everybody else, because she knew that she was needed to fight in the blood war, and without her, the demons would take over everything. So maybe she did the best good act. I quite like that one. That's interesting. I'd say all of my favorites are the devils. I must say the demons there are sort of various ones that, again, and these remind me of things from when I was an absolute small child and still reading about it. Like Orcus has always been around as this horrible undead monstrosity, and Dublex, which basically is just this huge, sludgy, sort of spongy, I don't even know how you describe them, just sort of big ooze.
It's an ooze with way too many eyes, so you're like, oh no.
But I like, a lot of my favorite devils are the ones that caught up with Asmodeus, because that's the thing, just like demons fight each other, and because they always, they can't actually get any order to them. That's kind of the demon's own weaknesses. Devils are organized, but reluctantly so. And the devils are constantly plotting and trying to kill each other. And the ones that plot against Asmodeus tend to not do very well. And Levistus is one of those who, rose up or attempted to rise up against Asmodeus. And in the typical, very fairy tale-like way, he was punished but made to serve. So he wasn't destroyed. He was trapped and frozen and given this responsibility to help people who in themselves are incarcerated or stuck in situations they can't get out of. In Levistus's case, frozen in a giant glacier, which, I mean, all these kind of icy references come into the spells in the player's handbook. I think the Tomb of Levistus is one of the warlock spells. I think I've seen, or one of the invocations you can see. So I've always liked Levistus. And I think probably my favorite, just because it doesn't make much sense, is the dual layer, the Farina and Belial. They are
really weird, isn't it?
It's the only plane ruled by 2 archdevils, and they sort of have this weird relationship, as 2 immortals do, where they're either father and daughter, or mother and son, or married couple, or brother and sister. Nobody can quite work it out, but they can't exist without the other, even though they're constantly trying to kill each other, and they hate each other utterly, unless somebody tries to kill them, in which case they both drop everything and then team up and then kill whoever's trying to kill them. It's this weird, hilarious, like, system of justice they've got. It's brilliant.
Levistus for me came up as quite top, because again, for me, anyone you say of hell or Avernus, certainly, like, I know Avernus is sort of based on Mad Max Fury Road, and that's sort of like all you see is like deserts and heat and stuff, and then you get to sort of Levistus level, That's why I say it wrong. Stygia? I don't know. It's just ice. It's like the Antarctic, and that is for me, such a incredible thing, like a frozen wasteland. And like you said, the Vistus sort of offers deals to people who can't escape at the last minute. So whether it's through death or the punishment or something like that, they offer that deal and they get that. I just love that the sort of parallel between it. I just think it's such an incredible idea for a story. And then with Levistus as well, he has an rival is the word I'm looking for, which I cannot pronounce. Grayson.
Yes.
Grayson, who he basically it's similar to how sort of the leadership of this level came back and forth between the two, and then Levistus won, but then was punished by Asmodeus, and so is encased in the glacier as you described, but is still the ruler of this level. And Grayson is sort of like constantly trying to find where he is, and I will destroy him once and for all because he's trapped inside the glacier. I was like, that's really cool, because you've got that sort of Frankenstein monster type thing where they're on the ice, and I just love that sort of image.
Yeah. There is a devil for every situation, and there's an archdevil for every situation. Just they specialize in just corrupting and taking souls, and it doesn't matter what your weakness is, whether you're trapped or whether you're greedy or whether you're hungry for power or whether you want revenge or you want to get around the rules. There is an archdevil for you, and they will find you if you are persuadable. And that's what I quite like. It's there is this argument that they are just fueling the blood war and keeping the demons at bay, but also they are doing horrible things to get to that point. So yeah.
And the other thing that, again, I appreciate, this is clearly written for people like me who are like, but where are the women and all that sort of thing, but there's a section on it talking about gender and devils, and it just says right at the top, gender is insignificant. Like they don't care, devils, because it's a shifting paradox, but they're like, oh, I guess for these adventurers, if I need to appear to them, I guess if it helps, I'll take on this form. And it's just like, I actually underlined it. It's like gender is just another tool for devils to get what they want. Yeah. And I thought that's such a powerful way of going about it. Like, so like
immortals don't breed, they don't, create themselves like we do. It is purely, they exist from souls, and souls are all that important. Yeah, and at the end, there's this brilliant, it just says, such expressions can't encompass the complexities of the strange relationships formed by beings of immortal evil. And I was like, oh, immortal evil, that's such a great way of putting it.
Yeah, and I just feel like it's just interesting how you could, all these, obviously they are assigned sort of, he and she pronouns or whatever, but you could just change it all. It doesn't, and I think that's the key thing. Like all this sort of, I know we're going to say this a lot for all these episodes, but like these are just ideas. This is what they've come up with, but you could just interchange who they are and what, if you want to have them all sort of female presenting devils, you can do that, or use they, them, or anything like that. Going on to demons now, So this the one criticism I would have of all of this is that I think, like yourself, there's always like a demon or a devil for anything, and I quite like that. But always seems to be, they always sort of come out as like, oh, they're very angry, or it's a Minotaur-esque with lots of strength and stuff. So my favorite demon, which again, apologies for pronouncing it completely like rubbishly, is Zugamoy. It's the demon queen of fungi. And yes. I used to have, so my background on my desktop is all the D&D wallpapers, and it changed. And it always used to go to her. And I didn't know who she was for ages. I was like, God, what a weird fae she is. All this fungi. Oh, but it's so cool. Oh no, it's so much worse.
She wants to absorb everything in the entire multiverse into one large organic fungus and rule over it all. It's, the demons are, as you say, they're more simple because the only thing they can think about is the fact that they are perfect and they are the center of everything and should be the center of everything. And that's kind of what unites demons, is that every single one wants to rule for themselves. But why, how, and for what purpose is very different between them all. Yeah, you're right. There is a demon for every person. The thing I like about it is it quite clearly says that unlike the devils, who are regimented and there are known devils in known places, the demons, I mean, the abyss is so horrifyingly large and infinite that there are an infinite amount of demonic sort of lords and princes and all these creatures. And we don't know all of them. And it gives you free reign to sort of make this horrifying challenge rating 23 to 26 creation that will come and kill people at the end of the campaign. I mean, these things are horrifyingly powerful, like really, really powerful.
And that sort of actually goes on to my next thing. So you mentioned obviously Descent into Avernus, but there's also, I'm sure you are aware of it, but there's Out of the Abyss, which was one of the earlier modules, which is about demons in the sense that your adventuring party gets taken into the Underdark and they escape, but then you discover that certain demon lords, such as the Demigorgon, Zutamoy, and Jubilex, have all been unleashed, and you have to go and solve this. And obviously, through looking at the stat blocks, these are like even and it's only certain stat blocks have been released for certain. So certainly Zariel's one has been released because obviously you're most likely to face. And that's the thing. I think some of the what's described is really good, but it's if your party or your sort of campaign, if you're going to include them, if the party sees them, they're pretty much dead. That's the impression I've got, and that's really cool. But I think it comes back to having games like this, when your party realizes that there is a much bigger battle going on and they're involved in it in some way. Certainly in Descent to Avernus, you have that where they have to go travel down to the first layer. I think this is the sort of thing where you might need to sit down with your players and say, look, this is a big deal. and not be like, because I feel sometimes, I think we've discussed it previously with other players, is that these things are so cool, so lore heavy and really exciting, but if your players aren't on board with it, it's going to be very hard for them to enjoy it. But also if they make a mistake, if they're just being silly about it, and obviously games that are silly, that's totally fine. I don't want to be like, your fun is wrong. It's totally not wrong. But if you're running Descent into Avernus and they muck up in front of Zariel, they're dead. And you can't pull punches. So I think for me, it's one of those games where you have to sit down and say, look, we're going to play a game. It's going to be intense. It's going to be a lot of fun, but you have to buy into it. Yeah. And I feel, for me, if I was going to run one of these campaigns or have this sort of Cosmos thing, maybe what I do in session 0, and this is just me being one of those awkward planners, is have like a cheat sheet to say, okay, your adventurers know these gods or these devils exist. You don't know much about them, but you know the names, and you know that these people are bad. And you don't. And obviously, if they go, oh, I want to find out more about this one, then they can roll for it. Because I think sometimes I certainly go into games and I go, oh, I've heard the name. I think that's bad, but I don't know.
You don't know how bad, though. That's the thing. Yeah. And actually, you're going on an interesting point, which is how do you get devils and demons into your game? And it sort of broadly splits into two different ways you can do it. And that's devils and demons on the material plane, and then you in their home planes. And the latter, it's a very, very different concept, because devils and demons will always be on the material plane in whatever form. Devils always are trying to recruit souls. They're trying to kill demons on the material plane to stop them from getting footholds. They're trying to amass wealth, power, magical artifacts, all these things. Demons just like to snack, so they're always going to be there in some form as well. So a material plane encounter typically can encounter, you could have a roving or lone individual, a devil or a demon that is doing something and is by themselves. You have demonic or sort of abyssal taints that could be opened. A portal may have opened. Demons may have been attempting to take root and are trying to sort of break free. A devil could be loose in the city with nobody stopping it, just siphoning souls. Or more interestingly and quite common, cults are one of the biggest things on the material plane that are sort of linked to the abyss and the hells. You get these cults of mortals who are either tricked, stupid, or in some way lost, and find themselves worshipping these evil entities and start to bring them forward in whatever horrifying way that it does effectively. So a material plane encounter is one thing. You've got to know, what are you dealing with? What is their true goal? Always remember that a demon, yes, it wants to fight, but really it's trying to consume and it's trying to spread its abyssal influence. That's kind of its most important point, especially if it's a higher ranking demon. Devils they may want to fight, but they're cleverer than that. They want to, they may have a goal. They may be trying to achieve something. Always keep that in mind. And interestingly as well, both creatures on the material plane, because they're outside of their home worlds, they can't be killed. If they die, they just get sent back to their plane and they effectively respawn after a little while. And then they could, in theory, come back. Although, actually, weirdly, traveling from hell and the abyss to the material plane is very, very difficult. Demons and devils can't do it themselves. They have to be brought through, or they have to be effectively left a door open for them to come through. They can't transport themselves through. And that's always an interesting thing as to why they're not more.
Yeah.
But running a campaign in hell or in the abyss, now that is different.
Would that be something you would consider at all? If we weren't doing TBA Mondays, would you try and do one, like Descent into Avernus, I know is the one go-to one, but even just make up your own where you go into the abyss?
It's difficult in the sense that you are moving into an environment that has incredibly powerful creatures in it. The material plane has very high level creatures. Dragons are a big example of a challenge rating 20 plus creature that can appear and breathe fire or lightning or ice and then sod off. And that's, that's always difficult to deal with. But hell and the abyss are full of these horrifying creatures. And don't forget, every single person, every single DM that runs a game of D&D, any single homebrew world that they have, that is like a different material plane. And as it's written in D&D, there is only one Nine Hells, there is only one abyss, and they feed off every single plane that's ever existed. So the numbers in these things are horrifyingly large. I mean, you've got to think the Nine Hells can absorb every single soul from Alexandria, the Forgotten Realms, Eberron, all these different planes of existence, even down to Xerios and, ones that we make. Yeah, exactly. So the numbers are terrifying. If you go down to hell, you could be faced with thousands upon thousands upon thousands of devils. And unlike on the material plane, they will all focus around you and try and kill you. And because of that, you have to make these things high-level encounters. There has to be a reason why you are down there. I personally wouldn't advise running a campaign in either the abyss or in hell below level sort of 11 would be where I would draw the line. That's where players generally get their more advanced class abilities. They get 6th level spells, which can provide pretty good protections against these sort of things. And you've got to have a good reason to do it. Like if you do a campaign in hell, every single creature wants to take your soul. So you have to have a reason, a patron, a sponsor, a devil that is protecting you, that has summoned you there, that is looking after you whilst you're there. It's complicated.
Definitely. And I think for me, like you said before, looking at between the two, I feel like for me, role-playing a devil, because I'm very bad at outwitting anyone. So the idea that the bargaining thing, because obviously players, you give them a bargain, they'll try and weasel their way out of it. So you have to constantly be sort of second-guessing, third-guessing them. So there's that element to it. So for me, I'd be like, okay, maybe not so much, because that requires a lot of thought power. But then looking at demons and the sort of their planes of visits, because not only, and I know obviously devils do have this as well, but having lairs, so like looking at Zutomoy's lair, like she's got several different actions with like sort of the mushrooms that she can go out, do these sort of spore actions where they can infect the party and turn them into sort of charmed effectively. So you have that. So I feel like the Abyss, you have a lot more the sort of flexibility and creativity with lair actions, but also they have a thing which I am on the fence about, but it's madness tables. So within, I think, 3 or 4 miles of their lair, if you're within 1 mile of the lair for 1 hour, you roll, and if you fail, and it's usually quite a high DC, like a 23 wisdom saving, you get one of these effects. And it's not usually like, I will kill everyone, but it's a certain sort of personality thing you get, and then you get to save, I think, every 24 hours, or if you've saved on it, you're immune for 24 hours. There's been a lot of talk in the tabletop community about using madness as a mechanic. Like certainly Call of Cthulhu is one for that, whereas, because obviously now you're thinking like, madness is probably not a nice term to call someone who's clearly mentally ill. So that's the issue I have, is using a table like that. I don't know whether to call it madness or just to add paranoia. I don't know. It feels something that I don't know enough about, and I don't know if I'd feel uncomfortable about it. But it adds to the fact that suddenly, you are in a chaotic space that you do not understand. Of course, you're going to think different things, and you're going to suspect other people. But whether that's madness or not, that's the issue I have is terminology. And I don't know if you had any thoughts on that at all.
I think it's all about drawing a line as to what is a long-term and a short-term thing that has been quite specifically put by some sort of magical force. I think it's difficult because the real world, it has a lot of very scary things and a lot of things that people can have wrong with them and a lot of issues people to deal with, and those will inevitably get reflected in D&D in various things. And I think the important thing to do is to be able to not take these things trivially, but to not let them get blended too much where there is sort of no real intention. And I think demons and madness it is like a sort of Cthulhu thing, as you say. It's this inability to understand and this sort of raw effect that is given on people. And yeah, maybe madness isn't the right thing. This sort of eldritch horror, this sort of abyssal influence on you. Maybe just refer to it as an abyssal taint or an abyssal condition or something along those if you want to avoid the madness phrase. But I think the one thing that we're getting better at is actually keeping the word madness to things like D&D, where it does describe it quite well, and we're starting to move away from using madness as a more generic sort of catch-all as a medical condition, because I think that groups people together more, and I think that does probably more harm than talking about demons. Maybe very broad brushing it, I don't know, but as you say, you're making sure that we use correct definitions and acknowledging that people, exactly.
Yeah, it's a conversation. Obviously, I bring up. I have no answer to it, and I don't expect you to have an answer to it. But I think it's one of those things where I'm becoming more and more aware of it. Just the way to say things, and just making aware that because it's one of those things where it's very hard to talk about because I don't have an answer, but it's something that I am increasingly more aware of it. But yeah, I think it's basically just not diminishing madness or whatever as a game mechanic, that you are being, you are being influenced by this chaotic thing, but it's I don't know, it's just not, don't diminish the concept as we know it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So moving on then a little bit, how would you, or have you implemented sort of a Blood War-esque type thing into your campaigns, or have you any elements or demons and devils in general?
I think in our particular campaign, we've seen demons really on one major occasion where you came across an abyssal opening, effectively a portal that had been created, and you had to, go and root it out, close it as best you can, and sort of stop this thing from spreading. And exactly. So you've encountered demons. I've never personally put devils into a campaign that I've run sort of specifically. We've had lots of occasions of demons or fiends generally. But I think the way you go about it is devils can come up a lot in bargains, and they are brilliant at giving boons and giving gifts to their followers, especially those who are greedy. So if you've got a villain, or you've got a party who are trying to take power, or you've got an undercover cult or thieves guild or something, you can quite easily introduce a devilish pact of some kind with that group, where a devil has got their hands in and are sort of slowly influencing via this cult, and you've got like the sort of additional thing that you can add in. I think abyssal openings and portals are quite a fun way of introducing demons into a campaign. Demonic boons are more complicated. The followers of demons tend to be more unhinged, and they tend to be, more interesting characters, whereas devils can make very clear pacts and deals with people. Demonic boons tend to be, you surrender your soul to a demon and it gives you a lot more benefit. The powers that demons can give are hugely increased over the powers that devils can give to an extent, but they are more at a whim. You have to stay in the demon's good book. So you may have a cult or a demonic abyssal influence on a group of creatures that were already in your campaign. A good way to think about it is if you've got monsters, monstrosities, beasts, you can quite easily put abyssal influences on those things. And at the end, there's sort of customization tables and different demonic boons at the end that could be given to creatures to make them a bit worse than they would normally be. So that would be a good place to start. Descent into Avernus is a good place to look if you want to have a look into the first layer of hell. But I would say if you want to do an introduction to a sort of outside plane adventure, I would stick with the Abyss. And I would do it such that you were in the Abyss either accidentally or deliberately, and you're in a small pocket of the Abyss. And, getting there is you need planar magic. That's fine. Once you're in, you don't know where you are. You get teleported to a random place. So you can describe this sort of little encounter space as you want to. It could be any form of like corrupted cathedral, a big chasm, any environment you want, just horrifyingly abyssal. They have to find a portal that can then be tuned to where they want to go. And then there can be a heist, an assault, a stealing of treasure, some sort of thing as to why you're in the Abyss. I would say a demon prince may have taken an artifact and you've got to steal it from under their nose and get out of there before you can. The Abyss is great because you can design it as you want it to be. You just have to remember that with any demonic or devilish campaign, you have to constantly give that impression that if it went bad, it would go bad really quickly because the numbers are against you and, they all want to kill you. So it rewards intelligent play and planned play. And high level play, I would say.
Yeah, like I was when I was thinking about this, like, so I've had very little to do with demons and devils, as one does. But I feel like I said, the thing that struck me right from the beginning is that there's so much of this, and I feel quite a few of the demons and devils, like, so I'm like, oh, these are really cool. Oh, these are very similar. So I was wondering, like, for me, if I was going to not. Again, it's that sort of thing. If it was my sort of campaign, if I wanted to replace anything, I would take sort of the structure of the nine hells, put it into sort of just simple sort of 7 deadly sins, have those different sort of devils and sort of maybe squish some together, take some out, and then run it, or had that sort of idea as that sort of pantheon of devils, and then have a dungeon or a sort of a what I would call a, not battle royale, but that sort of thing on a plane where you'd have like 7 tasks or 7 sort of obstacles to overcome, and each of them are represented by the not virtues, what is it called? The sort of the vices of each one, and give that sort of clues to them. So maybe just using that a little bit would be interesting. Certainly that might apply more to demons than devils. The other thing I was thinking of is actually just having a cosmic battle anyway in your campaign. Like we talked about it before with Mind Flayers, like, is this something you'd have from the beginning when creating your long-term world or goal? I think if you were going to have a cosmic battle, it's something that you have to have right from the beginning, have it like eons and eons ago, rather than it's happening right now, it's starting tomorrow. That's not going to work. But I wondered if it's something, again, where you can create, but it's something your players may never, ever discover. There was a picture that I sent you on our WhatsApp where it was just like, I don't know, some sort of creature underneath, and it was like the lore and stuff like that, and then its fingers are pointing out, and it's like what the players discover. Yeah. And I was just like, God, that just feels like it, because you have all this stuff in your head, which is really cool, and that's why this podcast is really fun for me, because I can just chat about it. But it's stuff that you could put into a campaign and that they never discover. But when they start to unravel stuff and you can see them sort of putting the pieces together, that must be an incredible thing. Like, I know that's happened for you when you've planned stuff 30, 40 sessions ago, and then we go, wait, what if it's this? And then it sort of blows all of our tiny little minds as players, and you just sit there going, fucking done it. Like,
yeah. That's a luxury I get to play with, because we've played for so long now that there are things that I planned before session 0 that now we're looking at it in session 80 something, and still there are things that you haven't found. There's a lot of stuff that you haven't found that I've maybe not given hints towards, but I'm looking forward to when you find it, the stuff you found that sort of clicks in and you're like, oh yeah, that's great. And any sort of proper evil that you throw in for demons and devils, it can be a little bit like that, because it doesn't matter what's happening in your campaign. This stuff has been going on before that. It will go on after it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's sort of like a double-edged adventure, because if you do something that influences this blood war too much, you may find a second encounter coming shortly after where you get approached by the balance, who then tell you, no, now you've got to fix it.
Yeah. Oh, that would be cool. Yeah, getting the balance involved would be quite good. I like that. And getting recruited by them. That could be good. I think, so the final thing I've got on here is there anything you would recommend in general, similar things about like cosmic battles, or having like a great big sort of like cataclysmic event that sort of has two warring sides in it at all, or even just demons and devils in general? Is there anything you would point towards and go, oh, that would be a good inspiration that's not necessarily from the D&D books?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, this particular book, this Mordenkainen's book, has multiple examples of races that don't necessarily get on. Elves and drow, dwarves and durgar, the Gith and Gith. Maybe it would be great if we did a session on this sort of stuff.
Oh, I don't know.
But like, there are hundreds of different examples of sort of people that fight. I'm just trying to think of, I mean, demons versus devils is very much a D&D sort of thing. Like, more typically it's devils and angels, isn't it? Angels and devils, and that fight between good and evil. And that's an interesting one where you've got like a triangle of angels want to kill anything evil, and anything evil wants to kill anything good, but also the evil wants to kill itself. And there is always a sense in D&D that good is not as powerful as evil, but good will always organize itself better than evil, and good will always win. So playing with that idea can always be quite fun.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I got in terms of sort of suggestions and stuff. Like, because like you said, demons versus devils is very a D&D role-playing sort of thing. So I was thinking, like, what have I seen that has that sort of element of good versus evil? There's Constantine, the film, and the books, where you have Keanu Reeves. That's not his name in the books, but he's obviously, he has the ability to see demons and is trying to exorcise them and stop the end of the world. But you have Tilda Swinton, as I call her, but plays Gabriel, who is sort of acts almost like a Zariel sort of figure, sort of is trying to have the birth of the Antichrist happen. Sorry, spoilers if you've not seen this film or read the books, by the way. But it's really interesting, because again, because I guess I'm a massive Tilda Swinton fan. Maybe we'll just change the podcast to that, about me talking about Tilda Swinton. But again, that sort of idea of having an angel on side or an ally, but is actually acting under other means because they think they are trying to control the balance, whereas, you know, they're actually acting for their own sort of ends. There's Darksiders. I don't know if you've ever played that game, where it's like a war between heaven and hell, and you play one of the horsemen of the apocalypse. You play War, and
I think I know the one. Yeah.
And you die, and then you were going to punish because you started the apocalypse and you didn't. So you're sent back to Earth to try and find out who did. And again, it's that sort of what's going on, who's going on. It's got Liam O'Brien, who plays War, and then it's got Mark Hamill, who plays sort of your weird assistant, like a horrible ghoulie type thing. That's
Lovely.
Definitely like a jester. It's like the Joker voice essentially. And then finally, I just got down Mad Max Fury Road again. Great film. Just watch it.
just great film. Yeah. Maybe you could add in. What is Kate Beckinsale, vampires and werewolves and all that sort of stuff.
Underworld.
Oh, yes. That's a classic film, isn't it? Terrible film, but classic.
Hey, it's great.
Entertaining. Put it that way.
Very entertaining. Great. Oh, well, thank you for that, Ryan. I've learned so much more about blood and war and and the difference between devils and demons, even though I still get it mixed up. So it's great. So thank you for that.
No worries.
So would you like to know what's the next topic that I'm making us read?
I'll go on then. Yeah, I would love to know. What do you, if I could guess?
Yeah, if you could guess, and I haven't seen me typing randomly into our stuff. So interesting, you mentioned the GIF. And the GIF Yankee and the GIF Zari, because they are also in Mordenkainen's Tomb of Foes, and their sort of relationship between each other and obviously the relationship to the Mind Flayers. So next time we were looking at the chapter, The GIF and Their Endless War.
Ooh, very exciting.
Yes, it's going to be great. Ryan, is there anything you would like to plug? Any sort of big social happenings, or I don't know, any discords that seem to have like just appeared out of nowhere?
Oh well, it's been it has been a busy few weeks actually. Yeah, you should come find me on YouTube. I'm Ursa Ryan. We also have TBA Mondays, and Ursa Ryan has a Discord now, so you should come and say hello and join in. But there's also, what have you got up to? You know, what are you up to? What
am I up to? Me? So I run, obviously, What Am I Rolling? A twice monthly RPG one-shot podcast. I'm still working on it. So there's stuff still happening. Obviously, we're doing on this. The other thing which has been happening is that I am playing a character called Loveday Spraggins for a show called What's Your Role? Where essentially, for their ad break, we played Bards Against Humanities, and I just turn up as a drunk elf bard who just sort of shouts various like Cards Against Humanities things. And last night I did my first live bit as I crashed into a live podcast recording, and it seemed to go very well. I had a minor panic. Yeah, I had, because Jimmy, who runs it, was like, oh, you know, it'd be great if you could come. I was like, great. Do I need to dress up? And they went, oh, you didn't, but yes. So I dressed up, and then I was waiting for like 30 minutes, and I was like, I'm really nervous now. I've got a full get-up, proper makeup, got like a big cloak on. I'm really hot. And then, as Ryan knows, I just appear into these things, and I'm like, hello! And they're like, oh my God, who is this person?
I'd love it if they didn't actually know you were going to do that.
They didn't, apparently, like, because we usually pre-record stuff, so it actually worked really well. Like, I know a couple of the people that Jimmy was interviewing. So suddenly there was a sort of, I go, hello, and do my whole bit. And just in the chat, I just saw people going, oh, Fiona! And I'm like, replying back, I don't know who Fiona is. Like, so please check that out. That's What's Your Role on various podcasting platforms as well.
Lovely.
Great.
I shall check it out imminently.
Oh, you. All right, well, see you next time then.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.